Hi folks, we're in Module 4, Novice Problems. I want to look at problem number 5, which is a regression problem. Let's see if we can make some sense of this problem. Let's go to our workbook. Here's the problem. You've got two types of workers. One type is incarcerated and the other is non-incarcerated. And you have some educational training that's going on. People are given a final exam and you collect a score. But there's also an initial exam that's given, then the training. And you'd like to know whether or not there's a difference between the incarcerated group and the non-incarcerated group to see how you can predict a forecast for their final scores from their status as incarcerated or non-incarcerated and their initial score. So let's see if we can build a regression model that will allow us to do that. This is going to require us to create a dummy variable. Here's the data that we have. We have 72 individuals that we've collected data on. You can see individual 72 is not incarcerated. Their first initial exam was a 96. And then their final exam was 96. So there was no improvement in that individual. But here's one that's incarcerated, had an initial score of 92 and a final score of 95. So how do we take this text that we see here in and out for whether or not somebody is incarcerated or not incarcerated and turn that into a numerical value that we can feed to a regression formula? Well, we're going to use an if and say that if K4, which is where the incarceration status is equal to out, I'm going to set that value to 0. Otherwise, I'm going to set it to 1. In this case, the outcome is going to be 1. Why? Because they're incarcerated. 0 if you're not incarcerated. So now we have our adjusted data wrangled data set that we can look at. This is going to be a independent variable, the dummy incarceration status, and the initial score is going to be an independent variable, and our dependent variable is going to be the final score. So let's take that data and kind of reorganize it over here. I've reorganized it here. I changed the rows here. This is the very same data. So we can see if we can feed this now to our regression tool. I want to use a regression tool in data analysis. Down at the bottom is something that says regression. I grab that. It says, all right, where's my data? I'm going to go to the Y is our final data. This is the dependent variable, the outcome variable. Our inputs are going to be these two independent variables, incarceration status and initial test score. I've got labels. I may want a confidence interval. I could put that in there if I wanted to. And then let's take it to an output area over here. I actually have one already. I'm going to just overwrite it and see what we can get here. I also mark the residuals, standardized residuals, just to get some information. Ask me, do I want to overwrite the area? Yes, I do. Nothing changes because that was the old problem that I'd done before. So now we can see that we've got a output here. Here are regression coefficients from our calculations. Here is a very important valuable number that's called significance F, and significance F tells us if our regression formula is significant. If this value is less than 0.05, which is what our alpha is here, then the regression is significant. We also have some p-values for the relevance of our variables. So if we look at our two independent variables, we can see that the incarceration status and the initial are here. The initial score is a p-value less than 0.05, substantially less. So this is a significant variable. The dummy incarceration status variable is 0.28, which is larger than 0.05, so it is not significant. Let's see how that changes our answers over here. What's the first thing we're asked to do? Well, we'll create the regression. We did that. We created the regression. I could have used Minitab also. It's up to you. And then I place the results below. I assume that alpha is 0.05. Is it significant? Yes, it's significant because the significance f is smaller than 0.05. How much of the variation in the final score is explained in the independent variable? That is what R squared tells us. R squared tells us, which is what we find in the data here, R squared tells us the amount of variation in the final score explained by the independent variables. And then finally, if we were forced to limit our independent variables to a single variable, in other words, get rid of one of the two independent variables that we have now, which one would go? Well, the one that would go will be the one that has the largest p-value. And here it is, the dummy incarceration status is not significant. It doesn't tell us that much in our regression. If you wanted to take this data over to Minitab, Minitab allows you to input data, go to regression. It asks us what kind of regression we want to do. In our case, we want to do fitted regression. We can create a model from that just as we did before, and you'd see that the results would be very similar to what we got. All right, that's the end of our discussion of problem 5 in module 4.